Hello, Amplify Nursing listeners. This season, we're trying something new, partnering with our Penn Nursing magazine to bring you additional content inspired by the stories they highlight in the spring edition of the magazine. We hope you enjoy the crossover of conversations with guests interviewed for both the magazine and the podcast, as well as additional content and context with new Amplify Nursing guests.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Rosa DiDonato.
And I'm Marian Leary.
And you're listening to Amplify Nursing, a Penn Nursing podcast supported by the Pinola Fund for Innovation in Nursing.
Amplify Nursing features nurses who are leading the way in science, policy, and innovation.
Our guests defy stereotypes, define practice, and disrupt convention.
We highlight the breadth and depth of nursing influence on society by amplifying nurses who are pushing boundaries and breaking down barriers to build a new paradigm.
And I always wanted to get my story. I always want to help other people. And I feel like people closest to the problem is the solution. And nobody understands that. So I've been trying to get that. I've been trying to get the word out for people like that.
Today on Amplify Nursing, we talk with Oronde McClain, a Stoneleaf Fellow and Director of the Survivor Connection at the Philadelphia Center for Gun Violence Reporting. In this episode, Oronde shares his journey as a gun violence survivor and his advocacy work. He created Survivor Connection, a program that helps journalists access firsthand survivor perspectives while educating survivors on media literacy. His work aims to bridge the gap between media and affected communities, ensuring accurate and empathetic reporting. McClain hopes to expand this model to other cities to improve gun violence reporting and support survivors in sharing their stories.
Hello, Oronde. Thank you so much for being on the Amplify Nursing podcast. Really appreciate your time.
No problem. No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
So I would love for you to talk with us today about the work you're doing centering the voices of firearm survivors in Philadelphia and your fellowship with the Stone Lee Foundation.
Okay, cool. So first, my name is Oronde McClain. I am a Stoneleaf Fellow with PCGVR, that's Philadelphia Center for Gun Violence Reporting, and I'm the Director of Survivor Connection. I started being in this work because I was a victim of gun violence. I got shot in the head at the age of 10. I'm 35 now, so it was about like 25 years ago. But gun violence still exists, and it's a huge problem. I got shot in the back of the head. I had to learn how to walk, talk all over again. I was in rehab for about like 10 to 15 years. And like, I needed to get my story out because I feel like talking about the situation and gun violence it helped me out. So I just wanted to show people what helped me so I can help them out. So I joined PCGVR, and that's Philadelphia Center for Gun Violence, and they have a lot of resources that offers a lot of help for people. So I first did a documentary that was called "They Don't Care About Us." I was paired with a producer partner and Miss Sherry Gregg from WHYY, and she really showed me the way how to like produce a story. And we did a documentary, and it turned out great. That was with PCGVR, and I actually got hired part time with PCGVR as a newsroom liaison. And I was going through newsrooms, telling them about the harmful reporting, like yellow tape and bullet casings on the floor, on the ground. Like, that's harmful reporting. We don't have to see that on the news every day. It's actually triggering for survivors and co-victims. Then I became director of Survivor Connection. I got a Stoneleaf Fellowship, and it ran for 2 years. And I'm doing a project as we speak, and that's called Survivor Connection. It's a tool to help out journalists. So we do once a month. I get about 30 people, right? 30 survivors, and it's a new resources to it to be intended to make experts from gun violence survivor community more rapidly access to journalists in Philadelphia. So we talked to them about media literacy because a lot of people don't know, like the regular public, they don't know what media literacy is. They don't know what's off the record and on the record. They don't know we gonna talk reporters will talk to you for 30 minutes, but it's gonna be like 5 second clip on the news. You know what I'm saying? And so we had to teach them about that. Public health, we have a public health expert, and it's a trauma talk as well that they get. So that's once a month, and it will be a directory that they fill out. So the journalists will get access to the directory. So say if somebody gets shot, 19141, you don't want all the news and cameras all in that one house. Now you have my tool, Survivor Connection, where the media can contact one of the credible messengers that I train, and they could call them by zip code. Say, hey, somebody got shot. Oronde, are you available to speak, or can you knock on the door for me? So it don't have to be like bad news. Because most reporters, they don't even know the neighborhood. They don't know the community. They just walking in blindfolded. And a lot of people ain't gonna knock on the no nobody gonna answer the door. The media is like cops in black and brown communities. They don't want to talk to you at all. So this tool that I'm providing in Philadelphia is a great resources for them.
It really is. Can I ask what made you want to start sharing your story and then sharing that information on how to do that with other gun survivors and journalists?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, working with Jim, and Jim McMillan is the director of PCGVR, and we have a lot of resources, like I said before, that we need to get out. And I always wanted to get my story. I always want to help other people. And I feel like people closest to the problem is the solution. And nobody understands that. So I'll be trying to get that. I'll be trying to get the word out for people like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A lot of the work that I do here at Penn Nursing and try and promote is something called human centered design, where you're going out and you're working with the community members who have the lived experience around the problem you're trying to address. And you would think that most people would realize that that's how you should really start when solving a problem. But to your point, not many people realize that, you need to work with the survivors or the communities to really be able to get the word out and make connections. So I really applaud what
Yes.
you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, because people don't understand where once you have that connection with the journalist, like you're giving them a huge access to your life. Like now you have a power to control the narrative. The cops don't have to control the narrative. The media don't control. You control the narrative. So if you see something wrong on the news, now you got a reporter that you can call and say, "Hey, I didn't like this," and they can just fix it. Because and there's a lot of follow-up stories that the news don't do. Like, oh, this boy got shot in the head and that's it. You don't know what happened to the little boy. So it's a lot of that's why I really like this program because it creates follow-up stories. It creates this this bridge. Like I'm bridging the gap between the media and the community.
Which again is so vitally important. I wonder, you said that you went through some trainings with the Stone Lee Foundation, but for the trainings you do for journalists and other gun violence survivors, like how do you prepare them to speak, especially I guess for the survivors, how do you prepare them to speak to the journalists? What are some of the tips that you give them when they're going to be speaking with the media?
Yeah, so we have Professor Elon Laddie from Temple University. She teaches the media literacy. She used to be a reporter. Now she's director of Khan College, right? And she walked through all the survivors what a reporter is going to say and what you shouldn't say. You get what I'm saying? So it's like she's giving them firsthand information what you're going to expect, and she's telling them, "Listen, this is your story. You have the power. Do not let them control the narrative. This is your story." And then we have Dr. Wright. He does the trauma talk. So the trauma talk is because you have to control your trauma. They're going to ask you a lot of questions that might open up old wounds, and we have to prepare you for that. I don't want you to go out there and say your story and then like something happen. You get what I'm saying? Like you start feeling a certain type of way. So we prepare you to feel some type of way. Because when you talk about your trauma, yeah, your old feelings is gonna pop up.
It's really interesting that you're combining those two things because it's true. Like as you talk about these things, the trauma will, as you said, pop up, and so I love that component to this. So where do you see this work going, and what's in your future?
Oh man, I think this should be in every city. It should be all around the world. That's just my opinion. But I feel like a lot of survivors and co-victims should open up more, and newsrooms should open up more as well to have survivors and co-victims work with reporters. Like I do ride-alongs. I do everything with reporters. It shouldn't just be me, right? So, say for instance, somebody gets shot in Kensington, right? I don't live in Kensington, but they call me, "Hey, Rondé, do you know the neighborhood?" No. What about the community? You just skipped over the community and you called me. That's why this program is so important. Now you can go on the platform survivorconnection.org and find a community member, survivor, or a co-victim that lives in that neighborhood that can give you firsthand experience better than I can.
That's so interesting. I had no idea journalists did that, or that they would have people who would ride along with them to help in the communities to get people to speak with them. I don't know if many people know that actually happens. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of community members that like already do that, but it's not like, it's not really popular. Like you have a lot, don't get me wrong, we see the good reporting, right? But more reporters have to like put on their boots and get out there in the community.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, like, how do you approach gun violence survivors and ask them to share their stories and participate in this program? Or do they
Um,
come to you?
Well, that's interesting because look, I'm a gun violence survivor, right? I protect my story. I don't want nobody to expose me, right? And a lot of people say the same thing. Oh, Oronde McClain, I don't know who you are. I don't want to talk to you until I explain my story to them. So we're in this club that don't have no name. So they don't mind talking to me because we went through the same experience in some type of way. And people would want to open up, but there's no space for survivors to talk
And why is it so important for them to share their stories with the media?
because you don't want to bottle up your emotions, or you have bad reporting saying this person got shot 5 to 6 times, but he only got shot one time. Is nobody to back you up. There's nobody up to clear your story. That's why this is so important. You need your story to be real, to be heard.
That's a great point. Like, you really want to be able to have authentic journalism, and to be able to do that, you need to have the people who the story entails telling their truth and their
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, because usually it's a cop saying, "Hey, that was a or a gang related shooting." They don't know. They just gathering evidence that they don't know. Oh, a 17-year-old boy got shot, and that's it. Or they group them together. Couple teenagers got shot. You have to put a face to the story. It's like you writing the obituary when you speaking to the media because you want the real truth to come out. Paint a picture that was a great young man that got shot. You get what I'm saying? It was like you have to make it real, and the media doesn't do that.
Well, luckily they have you and your program to help keep them honest and to make it
Yeah.
real. So, Oronde, thank you for sharing your story with us. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close?
I don't know if they want to reach me, they can email me Oronde at pcgbr.org. Do they want to know the more fascinating things that PCGBR is going and doing? You can go to pcgbr.org. We have a newsletter and they can get each week, they can sign up and see the fascinating things that we're doing because we're really changing Philadelphia. We're really changing it. And people don't realize it till they actually see it. We doing tangible work that they can really feel and see.
Well, thank you for that work. And I'll make sure to put all of your contact information in the show notes so
Okay.
folks can see how to reach you. Again,
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
all the work you're doing and sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much.
Hello, Angela.
Hello, Marion. How are you?
I am great. I really, really enjoyed my conversation with Oronde McClain talking about his really fascinating and much needed work with journalists around gun violence in the city of Philadelphia.
I really, really enjoyed this interview. I think his story is incredible for someone who suffered for so long and worked so hard and then started to see this need that the community had to not be exploited by journalism and to really have their voices heard in an accurate and empathetic manner. And I think that somebody who can walk out of such a terrible, terrible situation of what happened to him and turn it into something so incredibly positive and make that experience as good as it can be for anybody else who has also suffered it. It's just amazing. I mean, it's beautiful work.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because as he was talking, I sort of mentioned this in the interview. It really mirrors the human-centered design process in a lot of ways of really understanding who your end users or population is and listening to their voices, their needs, letting them tell you the story, both from the program he put together, but then from the journalism point of view, like really telling the story of gun violence victims from their point of view, as opposed to from the point of view of a journalist who can't possibly understand what they're going through. It was really just such a great way to experience what he's doing and to understand what goes on behind the scenes when something like this happens. Like, I had no idea that this was even a thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's a fantastic example of human-centered design. I mean, you could probably use this as a case study.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I hope more journalists reach out to him and other, like he said, seeing this grow to other cities. It's really important. And even beyond just gun violence victims, but or gun violence survivors, to other areas that are equally as underrepresented in the stories and how they're told in the media.
I totally agree with you there too, because it definitely elevates a community that is often overlooked.
For sure.
Amplify Nursing is hosted by Dr. Angela Rosa DiDonato and Marion Leary and produced by the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing. Music for the podcast was created by Harper Leary. The podcast is made possible by the Krista and Rich Pinola Fund for Innovation in Nursing.
Follow us on Twitter at Penn Nursing. Until next time, keep pushing over, under, around, and through. We want to thank you for listening to the Amplify Nursing podcast and remind you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you enjoy your podcast listening. And if you can do us a solid, please rate and review us as well. It will go a long way in amplifying our episodes.